Okay. The topic question was, in light of the current economic state and loss of direction in DC, how can we better amend the bipartisan system? And what can we do to get ourselves back in the green economically? Our three criteria were we need to have more efficient spending, because without that we're not going to get anywhere. Our second was we need to highlight more critical issues and promote the delegation of critical issues to the right people at the right time. So instead of having topics such as, they're important, like abortion and gay rights in the news all the time, we need to have stuff more related towards the economic side. We'll get more into that later. But without having a good economy, you're not going to, those things aren't as important. And then we need to lessen the gap between the two primary parties, because fighting over these things all the time isn't going to get us anywhere. Our three solutions. The first one was to put more responsibility on the states opposed to the federal government. The state knows what they need, and they should be the ones taking care of things like gay rights and abortion and all that stuff. The second was term limits for those that lack them. Without term limits, there's no reason for government officials to consider long-term solutions. They have a constant campaign going on, so they're spending half their term campaigning for the future term and not focusing on issues. So we either need to give them more term limits, or maybe possibly lengthen their term so they have more time to actually do stuff. And the third was voter restrictions. It's the hardest for us to implement because it's your right to be able to vote, but quite frankly, we feel some people aren't educated enough to be able to give a good vote. So that's that. Now we'll talk about voter restrictions more.
Like you said, this is the most controversial one because you don't know what to do. Give like qualification exams or raising the voting age, either one. And there's not really a right answer to that. There's just little things we can do to help that out. Like right now, they passed a law in like October that makes the person who goes up to vote, they have to present a photo ID that's like current and up to date for them to be able to even register to vote. And there's like 12 states that have done that already. And there's 4 states right now that also passed a law where they have to take, it's not really an exam, but they have to take a thorough like knowledge test, especially if they're like an immigrant or something like that. And they've made those tests harder to pass within the last year than they usually were, just because of that reason.
Term limits.
We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons with term limits and so.
Okay. Outside the president, every other elected official in the Senate, House of Representatives, and the Supreme Court is appointed for life and has the ability to be re-elected.
So the problem with this is that in order to stay popular and get re-elected, they have to sacrifice the good of the country for short-term policies and simply just to boost their polls while putting aside like long-term goals, and that would actually benefit us as a society.
Particularly with the House, officials are re-elected every 2 years, and this causes a constant campaign for which means shorter term limits.
So when there's shorter term limits, or when there are term limits, newly elected officials generally don't have the experience and enough time to get comfortable with their positions in office. So it's kind of like they're wasting a lot of time trying to figure out what get comfortable with and build up trust with other members and stuff.
But also, if we do have term limits, it opens up more opportunities for minorities and women to uphold the positions in government.
Currently, there's about 15 state legislatures that are having term limits, and generally the experience with that in the states is usually negative. State senators and lawmakers will they're just using their experiences in state legislatures and their short-term limits to make their way into Congress, congressional seats, or find more secure jobs afterwards. That's it. Okay.
But the problem with that is in the states, once they get to high positions, they tend to sit there for their whole careers, refusing to stick their heads out, pushing for new issues and stuff like that. And they ruin the left and right chances.
In the term limits, they usually was going to cause a lot more turnovers within like people in the House and stuff. So older members their term limits are about to end, they're not as focused on what they're like. They're starting to spend less time investing in issues that need to be changed, and they're trying to find a new source of revenue. And so, but we both agree that if we had to come to a conclusion, a better way we could fix government would be through putting more power into local and state governments.
Yeah, the problem really isn't the term limits, but it's really just giving more power to the states.
Abortion and gay marriage are the two biggest topics dividing the two parties right now. And when human life begins is a big question, and a lot of people have very different views on when life begins. So a lot of people are against abortion and for abortion. And it's just better at a local level, because if you don't like abortion, or if you're against abortion, or if you're against gay marriage, you can move to a state that it's illegal. And when it's at a local level, it's easier to talk to mayors and talk to the people, so the people have more of a say, and the city council can hear what the people actually want. And people who live in the same neighborhood oftentimes have the same backgrounds and the same viewpoints on certain issues. So, I mean, if you don't like gay marriage, then you don't have to live around people that support gay marriage. One set of laws that govern everyone in different situations isn't effective. So if the federal government says that abortion shouldn't be legal, or if they say that gay marriage shouldn't be legal, it's making a lot of people mad, and it'll cause a lot of tension between people because it's not making everyone happy.
We really need to focus on our debt and the record-setting unemployment rate and all the cuts in education. The 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution states that the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Since education is not mentioned in the Constitution, it is one of those powers reserved to the states. I think the job has become too big, so 50 heads are better than just one. If we want real change, maybe we should give more power and responsibility to the governments. I assume that all the state officials actually do live in their respective states, and therefore they are more in touch with the specific problems. And I think the primary responsibilities for Washington, D.C. would become foreign affairs and should be on the national level, and this would require a drastically reduced federal budget that could be managed.
For some of the negative reasons that states should have more power and that federal government should have more power, certain areas, states don't have the resources to make national decisions, like the national defense. If every state had their own army, it just wouldn't be effective or efficient, and it wouldn't work. Same with printing money, it's just not efficient. And in the past, when every state had printed their own money, it caused a lot of problems. And some issues, no matter what, should be illegal, like murder and slavery, and that should just be a national issue, that murder should never happen, slavery should never happen. In some programs, by the federal government have been efficient, even though some people say it hasn't been efficient, like Medicare and Medicaid. Europe is set up somewhat like the United States. Instead of states, they have countries, and every one of the countries in Europe has their own bank, and that's why it's causing so many problems. So it's hard to manage the European economy as a whole because there's no centralized bank. And centralized government has been working for years, so there's no point in fixing what isn't broken, and some problems just cannot be handled by the states.
And basically, the whole thing is just to give more power to the states, because by taking these key issues such as abortion and gay rights out of national news and putting more economically focused issues in the news, we'll get a lot more done. I mean, without a good economy, nobody can afford to get married or is going to want to get married, whether they be heterosexual or homosexual. And as well as like abortion goes, abortion is higher because people are poor. They can't afford to take care of these kids. By getting a better economy and having a better education system and all these good things, you're going to have smarter people, which means richer people, which means less abortion. So it kind of all just ties them together. But give the states more responsibility. That's the end.
Oh, you guys aren't leaving.
Yeah, what about the questions?
What are you doing, Don?
First and foremost, how'd you get that big? Well, you know, work out.
She hates you even more now.
No, I have to love him.
She just loves you.
You said I wouldn't do it. You said I wouldn't do it. Yeah,
So one of my questions was whether the economic system should be something that's only considered federal, or should it also take into account states? Because like Oklahoma, we have one of the healthiest economies right now. So should that issue become a federal issue where they should focus on what Oklahoma's doing, or should the economy as a whole be focused on the nation?
Okay. Before we go into answer mode, as you are asked a question, make sure that you repeat the question before you give an answer. Okay? You have to question. It is fair to paraphrase, and it is fair to make the question more succinct than the individual asking the question.
Okay, so you're just wondering whether the economy should be more of a federal issue than a state issue?